I'm going to talk about a topic that I'm sure is going to upset many of you, especially from what I think I'm going to say in the end of this, because many times I start these videos and as I talk and I listen to my own self, I change my mind. But I think this time I'm very confident that I know where it's going to go. I saw many videos in the past talking about Rolex, Omega, Tudor, and the question is always where Omega stands. And I made this question to you guys, and you decided, based on the polls, that Omega is closer to Rolex than is to Tudor. And all these YouTube channels that made this kind of videos agreed with you. I tend to disagree, however, and let me explain. On one side, you have a company that is a part of a big conglomerate, Swatch Group, that's Omega, and that has many issues. Some cases it's done right, and some cases it's not. In this time, I think it's not done right, and let me explain. First of all, the Swatch Group makes many decisions about where they place in their rankings their brands. For example, they decided that the brand that can go after Rolex is Omega. Fine, fair enough. But in that effort, they didn't let Longines shine the way Longines should shine and could shine based on their history. And Longines has some amazing history, some amazing watches and designs that they did in the past. They do a great job bringing watches this way back. But they need to follow the guidelines, like using ETA movements, working with third-party manufacturers for their bracelets, things that Omega is also doing, by the way, except for the movement part. Now, Omega was allowed to have their own movement production, with the exception of some little pieces that are harder to produce, like hairsprings and all these things that they buy directly from ETA. But ETA is part of the group, the Swatch Group, so it's in-house, technically, according to the law, right? So, okay, let's assume that Omega has everything in-house, but it's placed artificially where it's at. On top of that, you have the collaborations with Swatch that many loved. I personally hated. I thought that it was a quick cash grab from the Swatch Group to sell plastic watches and create a huge hype. That was amazing marketing, by the way, on the short term. On the long term, it just cheapens the brand, because if I can go into a Swatch Group and buy an under $300 whatever that writes Omega on the bracelet or the strap or the dial, that cheapens the brand. Imagine having plastic Rolexes going out that look similar in some cases to the original. How would that make you feel as an owner of Rolex? I think it cheapens the brand. You don't want to be associated. And keep in mind, I work in retail. And I work in retail. We do also luxury retail. And these companies come to us and they talk about adjacencies all the time. We have Omega, by the way. We have Longines, the whole Swatch Group. Some from the Richmond Group, like IWC. They come to us and they say, oh, we don't want to be next to X store. We want to be separate, or we want to be on that cluster of stores. So you can just place us wherever. So they have the face to come to us and ask for adjacencies according to their liking and the prestige of the company. And then they go on the next turn and they make plastic watches. That's not about adjacency. It doesn't cheapen your brand. Anyway, that's one thing. The other is bracelets. I talked about this in previous videos. Bracelets for Omega watches are made in other countries. They're not Swiss made. I don't know where they're made. Many of you said it's Thailand, it's China, it's whatever. I don't care. I don't know. That's not what we are examining today. I know, though, that it's not Swiss made. Okay? Then you have the movement issue that beats at 25,000 beats per minute, which makes that freaking seconds hand a little too tickish. Instead of gliding, it's ticking. And if you've seen enough watches, I mean, even a 28,000 beat movement, I can see some ticking there, but for the most part, I can't, especially on a glance. But the 25 is always obvious, and I know that because my manager has an Omega. Beautiful, by the way. It's a 007 Seamaster. Beautiful, 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 with a mesh bracelet. But every time I see that watch, I can see that seconds hand tick. So, yeah. And then you have Tudor. And Tudor is part of a foundation that has only two watch companies, Rolex and Tudor. Tudor is not owned by Rolex. Okay, I hear that a lot. No, they're both owned by the same foundation. Therefore, they're sister companies. And Tudor was meant to fill the gap that Rolex was leaving in the marketplace, because it was already considered an expensive watch in its early days. So the founder of Rolex created Tudor to close that gap using the same cases and bracelets and crowns like a Rolex watch, replacing the movement with an off-the-shelf movement, which we keep saying off-the-shelf. I don't think there's so much off-the-shelf, because every time I've seen an older Tudor movement, yes, they're ETA movements, but they're all decorated and they're all regulated. So I don't know if you can call them off-the-shelf. There's many companies that date that up to 2010s. 15s, Breitling being one of them. Omega was doing it using Valjoux movements for the automatic Speedmasters. Many companies, IWC was doing it. So, and Tudor had more decoration than an IWC ETA movement. By the way, I've seen enough. So, yeah. So you have Tudor, that was purposely created to be second to Rolex. But then the last 10 years, you have Tudor that they've gone their own path, creating their own designs. Granted, lately, they've been loosely following whatever Rolex is doing. So they have their divers, they have the Datejust in the face of Black Bay 36, 39, 41, 31. So you can get a Tudor Datejust technically, but just not called Datejust. But you have a manufacturer, nevertheless, that produces their movements in-house. The Kinesi manufacturer that creates the Tudor movements is in the same building as Tudor headquarters, Tudor manufacturing facilities in Switzerland. So whatever they make on the head of the watch, at least the movement part, is Swiss made, and it's made right there. And then you have timeless designs, you have amazing bracelets, and then lately you've seen Black Bay fully in gold case and bracelet coming out. And this is the thing, that it's so obvious that Tudor is unleashed by the Winstolf Foundation to go after Omega. It's so obvious. Not only they're increasing their prices, not only they create an anchor product, which is the Black Bay Gold, the Black Bay 58 Gold. So they have a more expensive offering, but they also played Omega in their own field. They went after Omega in their own field, their own game that they created, the Meta certification. You can get a Meta certified watch for $4,500 retail, or you can buy it secondary market for around $3,000. If that's not going after Omega, and what Omega does, and that's going back to Omega and talking about the way Omega is thinking, being part of a big group, where Tudor yes, it's part of the foundation with Rolex, but at the same time, I think it's a much more agile company, and it shows from the way they respond to people's comments and requests. For a big Swiss company, they respond pretty fast. You can say the same for Omega. How many times did you hear about Omega bracelet? Be looking a lot of like the Seamaster 300. That bracelet, everybody under this sun says the same things. It looks very 1990s. It doesn't taper. The clasp is good, but it's chunky. They could do a better job. That helium escape valve is there for unnecessarily sticking out for the longest time. And yes, I can understand that people say, oh, it's a design feature by now, but nobody really likes it, because everybody would go crazy when I guarantee you, if a Seamaster without a helium valve was coming, everybody would buy it. And then they have that movement. And I know that many people talk about that movement. And that movement ticking slower than a Kinesi movement in the Tudor watch is still not getting 70 hours of power reserve. And now some of you might say, oh, but my watch has 2 barrels. Well, first of all, not all movements in Omega have 2 barrels. 2 barrels are important because they give a better torque to the movement to the end of the power reserve. So it's not ticking slower as it's dying. But with 2 barrels, you still have about 55, 60 hours max, I think it is. Yeah, 55, 60 hours of power reserve. So Omega is not doing enough. Their movements is not decorated enough. Yes, they have this striping when you see it from the case back, fine. But the moment you remove it, the moment you're removing the isolating weight, there's almost nothing under. Like the moment you start taking bridges out, it's just plain metal. And you can say, yes, but Tudor is the same. Yes, but Tudor is much cheaper. So for the price, based on what you get, a Tudor is a much better deal. Historically, is not as significant as Omega, not even close. But I wonder for how long can Omega lay on their victories of the past and let Tudor take their bread. Because if I was buying a watch today, I would be hard-pressed buying an Omega over a Tudor, only because the value aspect. And you like it or not, some of us, it really depends, right? Some of us are ready to spend more money for history. That's including me. But at the same time, I want to get a watch that I dig. And the Omega Seamaster 300 has these aspects that I don't like. It has that slow ticking movement. It has that bracelet. It has that helium escape valve. And I can go on other watches too. There's watches in the Omega lineup that look like a Tudor 1926. The Tudor 1926 is the only watch that Teddy Baldassar loves. I just happen to disagree on that one because I find it very boring. Omega has a bunch of watches looking at Tudor 1926 that they're not even come to your mind. The DeVille collection especially, forget it. So apart from 2 watches, 3, Globemaster, the Seamaster, Speedmaster, Aquaterra, boring is the Datejust of Omega, and I find it boring. Like it's the same way you say that, oh, a Datejust with a smooth bezel and an oyster bracelet is boring. Well, that's what a Seamaster, an Aquaterra is, really. There's nothing there as the design to to make you tickle a little bit inside. There's no clasp. It's supposed to be like a very elegant watch, but then it's 150 meters water resistance. Decide what you want. Omega. I don't know. I think that they have such a hard time responding to people. Either they think they do everything right because they sell many watches, or they're victim of their own size and they have hard time keeping up with the demands of the people. Because I can tell you, the comments that I made about the Seamaster, for example, and I only picked one, are made by many people on YouTube, on comments, on everywhere. Let me know what you guys think about this debate, Omega versus Tudor. Where do you stand on this one? I know that many of you think that it's closer to Rolex, but I wonder if you're thinking that it's closer to Rolex because of its history or where it stands today. That would be a great poll. I'm actually going to post it. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one. Ciao.